Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the fascinating and frankly mind-blowing biological reasons why your late-night snacking habit might literally be sabotaging your metabolism. I mean, you know the feeling, right? It's 10 o'clock at night, the house is dark, and you're standing there illuminated by the glow of the refrigerator light. Well, if you've ever wondered if eating that food right now makes a difference compared to eating it earlier in the day, you are in exactly the right place. We're putting our biological clocks under the microscope to see how time itself acts as a hidden nutrient.
For decades, we've all been handed the same, delightfully simple rule for weight management: calories in, calories out. It suggests this straightforward math equation where a piece of pizza has the exact same physiological impact whether you eat it at noon or at midnight. But let's really think about that. Is a slice of pizza at noon actually processed the same way at midnight? As we unpack the absolute latest metabolic research today, we're going to see exactly why that old paradigm is fundamentally flawed. We'll discover why your body is actually a highly time-sensitive machine that reacts drastically differently to food depending on when the sun goes down.
Listen to this quote from Nina Vujovic, a researcher who led a really groundbreaking study out of Harvard Medical School. It frames our investigation perfectly. She says that eating just 4 hours later changes everything. The timing of your meal dictates 3 critical pillars of your health: your hunger levels, your calorie burning, and your fat storage. It's wild. We're learning that you can't just isolate what's on your plate, you've got to look at the clock on the wall. It's not just about the food you eat, it's absolutely about the time you eat it.
Okay, part 1, the midnight snack myth. We need to completely deconstruct this widely believed assumption that your digestive system just operates on a 24-hour flat rate schedule. And honestly, the urgency behind this research just cannot be overstated. Right now, obesity affects approximately 42% of the US adult population. That's nearly half of all adults. So it's abundantly clear that the traditional advice just isn't giving us the whole picture. Since obesity contributes to a massive host of chronic conditions, from heart disease to diabetes, scientists are finally digging deeper. They're looking beyond just what we're putting on our plates to figure out what other hidden variables are driving this epidemic.
Moving right along to part 2, the 4-hour shift.
To uncover the real truth about meal timing, some elite metabolic detectives at Harvard, Brigham and Women's Hospital, and Columbia University set up an incredibly rigorous experiment. They didn't just ask people what they ate on a survey, no, they brought them right into the lab. The brilliance of this study was its simplicity. They took participants and just shifted their exact same daily meals by 4 hours. The early eaters finished their dinner a good 6.5 hours before bed. The late eaters ate the exact same food, the exact same calories, but finished just 2.5 hours before hitting the pillow. They essentially created a time zone shift for the participants' stomachs. And they didn't mess around with the rules either. To get these answers, researchers locked in a highly controlled environment. Participants were kept in a metabolic chamber. They were given identical diets, fixed sleep schedules down to the minute, and even the exact same light exposure to ensure their circadian rhythms stayed perfectly synced. By controlling all of these variables to such a degree, which by the way is incredibly rare in nutritional science, they removed all the usual excuses. There was no secret snacking, no extra walking around. Any metabolic changes observed in this data are purely and undeniably due to the clock.
Which brings us to part 3, silencing the satiety signal.
So let's talk about how this simple 4-hour shift messes with our internal signaling, starting with our hunger hormones. To understand this, you really just need to know the 2 major players in your brain's appetite control room. Think of the hormone leptin as your body's brakes for eating. It signals satiety and clearly tells your brain, hey, we're full, you can stop now. Ghrelin, on the other hand, is the accelerator. It's the hormone that actually drives the physical urge to eat and makes your stomach rumble. Here's the really wild part about the data. A mere 4-hour delay in eating caused a massive 24-hour decrease in leptin levels. By eating later in the day, the participants essentially silenced their fullness signal entirely. Think about the profound irony here. Without those brakes functioning properly, the late eaters reported being significantly hungrier the next day, even though they had eaten the exact same amount of food calorie for calorie as the early eaters. They were fighting a hormonal battle they didn't even know was happening.
Let's look at part 4, burning sugar, trapping fat.
Being artificially hungry is bad enough, right? But that's only the first metabolic crime committed by the midnight snack. It gets worse. Let's investigate how late eating fundamentally changes the actual type of fuel your body decides to burn. Your body is basically a complex hybrid engine, and scientists measure which fuel it's prioritizing with something called a respiratory quotient, or RQ. When you align your eating with your body's natural waking clock, it happily burns an efficient mix of carbohydrates and fat. But when you eat late, the engine panics. It switches to burn a much larger portion of carbohydrates, or sugar, and leaves the fat reserves completely untouched. The researchers at Columbia University actually quantified this exact shift. They found that this late-night metabolic panic meant late eaters burned 29.5 fewer grams of fat over a 24-hour period compared to when they ate those exact same meals earlier.
To put that into perspective, the real-world impact is massive. That 29.5 grams of unburned fat equates to a deficit of 265.5 kilocalories of fat every single day. Just let that sink in for a second. You are literally trapping over 250 calories of fat in your body daily, not by overeating a single bite, but simply by shifting your mealtime a few hours too close to bedtime. Over a week, a month, or a year, that compounding effect is immense.
Next up, Part 5. The genetic fat switch. If you thought trapping calories was wild, get this, it goes even deeper. These metabolic differences aren't just floating around temporarily in your bloodstream. They are actually rewriting how your fat tissue behaves on a microscopic, molecular level. Biology relies on specific pathways to function. Adipogenesis is the biological process that promotes fat growth and storage. Think of it as a cellular fat-storing trap. Lipogenesis is the exact opposite. It's the pathway that acts as a furnace to break down and burn stored fat for usable energy. To see what late eating does to these microscopic pathways, the Harvard researchers actually went as far as taking adipose tissue biopsies from the participants throughout the study. And what they found was absolutely staggering. Late eating directly flips your genetic switches. It turns the adipogenesis fat storage pathway completely on, and it forcefully turns the lipolysis fat burning pathway off. You are literally programming your own cells to hoard fat when you eat late at night. Finally, Part 6. Timing is everything.
So now that we've mapped out the fascinating and frankly slightly terrifying biology behind all this, let's look at the full cascade. It's a highly precise biological cycle. Step 1. You shift your meals just 4 hours later into the evening. Step 2. Your fullness hormone, leptin, drops, leaving you ravenous the next day. Step 3. Your confused metabolism burns sugar and leaves your fat untouched. And finally, Step 4. Your genetic fat storing switches activate to hoard whatever is left. It is a perfect biological storm, primed for weight gain, and it compounds every single day you repeat the cycle.
Now, it's really vital to keep this in perspective so we aren't terrified of the dark. Having an occasional late supper with friends or grabbing a midnight snack once in a while, that won't permanently break your metabolism. Your body is incredibly resilient, but the evidence from these strict, controlled studies is just overwhelming. Making late eating a regular habit significantly increases your obesity risk over time. Chronologically aligning your meals with your waking hours is actually one of the most powerful, totally free tools you have for weight management.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought. The next time it's 9 p.m., you're binge-watching a great show and you find yourself wandering toward the kitchen, just pause for a second. Let at the clock. Knowing what you know now about leptin crashes, missing out on fat oxidation, and actively turning on your genetic fat traps, is it actually you that needs that snack, or is it just your habits?